Now then, let us sit with this little phrase that has traveled so far and so fast. I am. You have seen it on cards, in books, on the mirror, and you have heard it rolling through the mind late at night when you wished to steady yourself. And I would not for one single moment have you feel guilty for that, or ashamed, or as if you had done a wrong thing. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness, and each stage uses the tools that belong to it. For many, the phrase has been a stepping stone, a railing on the stair, a way to quiet turbulence for a moment. In other words, it represents a sincere reaching for stability, for identity, for that which abides when circumstances change. But watch out. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. And from that standpoint, we must make a gentle, vital correction. The power is not in the syllables. The power is not that the mouth forms I and am, or that the mind repeats them long enough to hypnotize itself into a temporary calm. The value, if there is value, is this. Behind, before, and utterly prior to the phrase is a living presence that is. It is before your thought of it. It is before your description of yourself. It is before affirmation and denial. You see, the word I on your tongue is but an echo of the I that is never spoken, the self that is being itself whether or not you announce it. When we rest in that presence, we are not telling truth to make it true. We are yielding to what already is truth. Now then, what changes when I am is recognized as presence rather than as a line in a mental exercise? First of all, effort subsides. You are not coaxing a mood, you are consenting to an actuality. Secondly, identity ceases to be a costume of adjectives. I am strong, I am safe, I am successful, and returns to its naked fact. I am. Period. Before qualities, before roles, before today's weather in your thoughts, I am. In that recognition, a quiet enters that does not depend on how many times you have repeated anything. In other words, contact replaces commentary. You sense, sometimes faintly at first, the hum of being that is there when the words stop. And in that hum is the lawfulness by which harmony later appears without dramatics. So let us honor the stage at which words were a comfort. Do not condemn it. But never, never, never mistake the signpost for the road, nor the doorbell for the home. If the phrase I am rises in you, let it be like the knocking that reminds you to enter the room of your own awareness and sit down. Sit, not to persuade, not to decorate yourself with affirmations, but to notice that even before you knocked, the room was lit. We will go further with this, but for now hold this in your heart. I am is not something to say for results. It is the presence in which you can rest, and from that rest, life, by law, will show you its harmony. Now then, let us ground this in something very practical and very safe, so that no one here imagines that we are setting up a new rule book to grade yourself by. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. Your present manner of saying, I am, is not a sin to confess. It is a window into where you find yourself today. And that is honorable. That is truthful. Never be ashamed or afraid to acknowledge that you have leaned on words, or that you have wanted results. That is a stage. But you see, stages are for passing through, not for building a home. Let us look quietly at three broad stages of identity. First, the material stage. I am body and circumstance. In this state, life is primarily a weather report of conditions. Health, money, reputation, relationship, These are the rulers, and you feel yourself under them. In that consciousness, prayer naturally becomes begging, pleading, bargaining. Lord, heal this body, fix this job, change that person. Do not call it wrong. It is what that state must do, because it believes it is separated from good and must import it from outside. Then comes the mental stage. I am my thoughts, and I can think better thoughts. This is a beautiful advance, and for many of us a necessary one. Here the mind learns to turn from despair to affirmation, from fear to constructive statement. I am healthy. I am successful. I am guided. You see the difference? Prayer at this stage is assertion and mental treatment. It seeks to direct thought toward harmony in order to shape experience. And for many, this brings a season of order and confidence. Again, not wrong, simply a rung on the ladder. But there is a third stage, spiritual identity. I am aware presence. Thought arises within me. Here, identity is not a body to protect or a mind to polish. It is the living, witnessing awareness in which body sensations and thoughts appear and disappear. In this stage, prayer is no longer begging, nor is it steering thought. Prayer becomes stillness. It becomes receptivity without an agenda. It is the quiet resting as that presence which is before words. In other words, we are seeking contact, not outcomes. We are seeking God, not the things we imagine would prove God. Now watch how I am changes its meaning across these stages. In the first, I am is followed by conditions. I am sick. I am afraid. In the second, I am is followed by corrections. I am strong. I am safe. In the third, I am stands naked and sufficient. I am. Period. And from that period, a full stop of the mind, there flows a felt sense of being that requires no adjectives to uphold it. Your use of I am, then, reveals your stage of consciousness more than your vocabulary. You can borrow the finest phrases of the saints and yet be in petition. Or you can sit wordlessly and be in communion. Do not scold yourself for where you are. Simply notice it. Then honor God by moving gently upward. If you find yourself begging, let that honesty ripen into the courage to affirm. If you find yourself affirming, let that confidence ripen into the humility to be still. And if you are still, remain until the contact is made. Never, never, never hurry that. For when contact is felt, you will discover why the Master could say, "Take no thought," because the law of harmony adds, and you are no longer trying to add by mental effort. Now then, let us look, quietly and honestly, at what so often hides behind the dignified use of I am. You see, without blame, never blame. There are states and stages of consciousness. We begin by saying, I am strong. I am supplied. I am loved. And the very heartbeat of it is a hope that something out here will improve. The body will settle. The bank book will swell. The phone will ring with the right voice. And so the noble phrase becomes a very refined way of asking. It has put on a tuxedo, but it is still petition knocking at God's door for things. Now watch out. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. The moment I am is turned into a tool to manipulate appearances, we have slipped from presence into petition. We have taken the holy and asked it to become our errand boy. In other words, we have turned God into a mechanism. Pull the I am lever enough times, out comes health, out comes money, out comes safety. That is the Santa Claus idea dressed in metaphysical clothing. God is not a machine to be operated. God is spirit. God is law as well as love. Presence is not a gadget in the human workshop. It is the life in which the workshop appears. When we use I am as leverage, we declare by implication that we lack, that we are outside the circle of good, and that with sufficient mental muscle, we might persuade reality to change its mind. Never, never, never. There is no persuading infinity. There is only yielding to it. Let me draw the line where it must be drawn. I am, as effort, is mental will. You outline the shape of tomorrow, you fix your gaze on an effect, and you hammer the phrase until the mind grows numb. That is self-hypnosis. It may steady the nerves, it may bring a short season of order, but it leaves you with your hands on the controls and the dread that if you stop controlling, the order will vanish. I am as recognition is another universe altogether. It is stillness. It is surrender. It is listening until the real, which has never been absent, is felt as the very context of you. It is the cessation of outlining. It is consent. It is the humble willingness to let truth be true without your assistance. Does this mean we ignore the human scene? Not at all. There are states and stages of consciousness, and each must be honored. But hear me. You do not go to God for effects. You go to God for God. You do not take presence to the marketplace to trade it for better circumstances. You rest in presence until the contact is made, and then, by a law not of your making, what is needful is added, without drama, without parade, without your blueprint leading the way. So the next time you catch yourself using I am to pry open a door, I am prosperous, and therefore the check must come. Stop. Be still. Let the adjectives fall to the ground. Let I be simple, silent, bare. If a word rises, let it be only a knocking. Father, reveal thyself. And then drop even that and listen. Listen until the click is felt and the weight in the heart shifts. From there, action will come if action is required. Speech will come if speech is required. But it will not have strain in it, and it will not be bargaining disguised as prayer. It will be the natural outflow of presence recognized, and in that recognition, petition has no place, because there is nothing to get, only the all to behold. Now then, let us come to the strange simplicity at the heart of all we are saying. We have spoken of dropping adjectives, of letting I be simple and bare, and we have hinted at a click, a shift, a weight moving inside. What is that? It is this. Before you can say, I am anything, you must notice the awareness in which that sentence appears. The sentence comes and goes. The awareness does not. The moods roll through. The awareness remains. In other words, the truest I am is not the phrase at all. It is the aware being to which the phrase reports. Ask yourself, quietly, gently, without strain, what is it that notices your fear? The fear is vivid, yes, but what is it that knows it is vivid? What is it that notices your affirmation when you turn and say, I am strong? The affirmation has a sound, it has a feeling, but what is it that hears that sound and senses that feeling? What is it that remains when the words stop, when the sentence ends and there is a second of unconstructed being? You see, in that bare second you have encountered the only I that is not in need of reinforcement. It is there before the declaration. It is there during the declaration. It is there after the declaration has dissolved. That is presence. Now watch the mind. It wants a phrase. It reaches for a handle. It seeks something to say in order to stabilize itself. Presence wants no handle. Presence wants recognition. Presence wants only to be seen as what is already here. I am, in its purity, is not spoken. It is felt as still beingness, as the unhurried fact that you are, prior to being this or that. If a phrase comes, let it come and let it go, but do not look to the phrase for power. The power is the awareness in which even that holy phrase arises. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. If today you feel the need to say, I am safe, say it, and do not condemn yourself. But you see, let that very saying become a doorway. Who is hearing, I am safe? Who is aware of the pulse quickening as you speak? Who is present when the pulse settles? That witnessing awareness is not made safer by the sentence, nor is it threatened by the fear. It is the unmoved context within which both appear and disappear. Let us make it practical. Sit, as you will sit many times in a day, and allow the mind to do a little of what it does. Present an image, a memory, a hope. Notice, without chasing or pushing, that there is a knower of these movements. The breath rises. There is an awareness of breath. The hand tingles. There is an awareness of tingling. A thought says, I am tired, and even that is known. Now, what is this knower like? Does it tire? Does it tingle? Does it hurry? You will discover, sometimes so quietly you might miss it unless you are patient, that the knower is simple, open, clear, present before breath is counted, present before a hand is held, present before a thought is dressed in words. That is your I am. And here is the correction we must make, and we must make it gently but firmly. Never try to improve that awareness with a phrase. Never, never, never. You cannot polish the sky by arranging the clouds. You cannot enlarge awareness by arranging its contents. Your task, if task it can be called, is recognition. Be still and know. In that knowing, which is not a thought but a felt fact, the old urge to construct an identity begins to release its grip. Then, I am ceases to be a tool for getting, and becomes the very presence in which getting and losing have no authority. From there, the law that adds will do its quiet work without your supervision, because the contact has been made where contact alone can be made, in the awareness that is. Now then, having seen that the phrase cannot polish the sky, let us come to the home of this realization. Prayer. Not prayer as most of us were taught in our first stages, not the reaching out with requests, not the stacking up of sentences in the hope that God will be impressed by their beauty, but prayer as communion, as contact. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. Prayer is not self-improvement. Prayer is not persuasion. Prayer is not the effort of a human mind to make spirit do something. Prayer is the still recognition of presence, the quiet yielding to what already is. In other words, prayer is the restoration of felt contact with the omnipresent I that is before words. You see, the temptation at the mental stage is to refine our speech and call that spiritual. We substitute anxious words with loftier words and think that the improvement in vocabulary is the improvement in consciousness. No, not many words, not better words, not spiritual words. silence, receptivity, listening. Never, never, never try to make presence do something. You cannot add light to the sun by describing it. You cannot urge the ocean into wetness by reciting its qualities. Presence is. The only meaningful movement in prayer is the movement of our consent. Consent to be still, to be unbusy, to let the inner ear open and the inner eye rest upon that which is already here. Now let us be very gentle with ourselves and very clear. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. If today you enter prayer with concerns crowding the doorway, do not call that wrong. You are where you are. But you see, do not carry the marketplace into the sanctuary. Do not go within to fix a life. Go within to meet God as presence. Go within empty of purpose and discover that you are not the fixer and there is nothing to fix in God. Sit, not to get answers, but to be in the answer. Sit, not for effects, but for God. And in that very sitting, without outline and without demand, a click occurs. Contact. And after contact, life is added. By law, not by magic. By order, not by your blueprint. What would you tell omniscience that it does not already know? What need could you parade before omnipresence that would make it any more present? It is not information that opens the door. It is adoration without an object. It is gratitude that does not wait for a package on the doorstep. Be still, and let a love for reality itself rise and have its way. Let a quiet gratitude for the fact that being is soak through the mind. Do not name what you love. Do not measure what you are grateful for. Simply rest as the awareness that knows, I am, without decorating it. That is prayer. And here is the assurance. When that inner contact is felt, action, if required, will announce itself without strain. Speech, if required, will come without hypnosis. The refrigerator fills, the body steadies. The door that must open, opens. Not because you have engineered it with holy syllables, but because law operates where presence is realized. Take this into your day. Enter prayer for God alone. Honor God by refusing to outline. Listen until the words drop away and only being remains. In that wordless communion, I am is not said. It is lived, and harmony without drama is added. Now then, let us come to the great reversal, and be very gentle with ourselves as we cross this little threshold. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. It is natural at a certain stage to say, I am trying to be present. You set the jaw a bit, you tighten the attention. You huddle the mind into a corner and say, stay here, watch the breath, hold the mantra. Do not think you have failed because you have done this. It is what that stage does. But you see, if you have glimpsed a higher standpoint, do not remain there. When contact has given you even a taste of the effortless hum that was there before the effort, you must allow yourself to rise into it. Before the reversal, there is strain, trying to get calm, trying to hold attention, trying to maintain a state the way one might balance a tray of glasses through a crowded room. Your shoulders know this. Your brow knows this. You fear that if you stop trying, the tray will fall and the precious calm will spill. After the reversal, there is resting. You are no longer the waiter trembling with the tray. You are the room itself in which waiters come and go. Breath comes and goes. Attention tightens and loosens. Thoughts brighten and dim. And you, presence, remain. Open, simple, untroubled by the weather of mind. In other words, you do not practice presence to become I am. You recognize presence as I am. And recognition is not a muscular activity. It is a seeing. It is a consenting. It is the soft, unquestioning admission that what is aware right now is you. And it was here before you began the exercise, and remains after you end it. Never, never, never attempt to manufacture this by will. You can no more will awareness than you can lift yourself by your shoelaces. Here is your practical test, and let it be tender, not harsh. If I am is presence, it remains when the mind is noisy. If, the moment a flock of thoughts flutters through, your I am is lost, and you must scramble to rebuild it, what you had was a mental state, not the self. Do not call that wrong. Just notice it, smile, and step back. Back from the content into the context, from the phrase into the awareness hearing the phrase. Ask, what is it that knows I am distracted? That knower does not rattle with the distraction. Rest there. You may say, but I keep slipping. Of course, in a stage there is slipping. The point is not to build stronger fences of effort. The point is to discover there is a field with no fences at all. Each time you find yourself trying, let the trying itself be a bell. Hear it and remember, presence is what I am. Drop the project. Let the breath be as it is, the thoughts as they are, and sense the unmoved space that is aware of both. That is the click. That is contact. And from that contact, law proceeds on its own axis. Action, if required, will come without strain. Speech, if required, will carry no hypnosis. You have turned from holding a state to being the stateless one in whom all states appear and dissolve. Keep turning there, quietly, repeatedly, until the notion of trying to be present falls away like yesterday's weather, and only presence remains, lived, unargued, self-evident. Now then, having seen the reversal from trying to resting, let us look straight at the one habit that most quickly pulls us back into strain. Outlining. You see, the moment you take I am and hitch it to a picture of how life must look, what body you must have, what office you must hold, what bank figure must appear, you have come down from presence to the human level of control. You have turned the holy into a drafting table and set yourself to sketch a future self. Watch out. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. God is spirit. God is law as well as love. Law unfolds. It is not managed. Love reveals. It is not ordered about. The instant you outline with I am, you are no longer recognizing. You are bargaining in metaphysical clothing. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. Desires are not sins, they are signals. They reveal where consciousness is still convinced of absence. When you desire health as a goal, you are confessing, health is not my present reality. When you desire supply as an object, you are saying, supply is elsewhere and must be fetched. Do not condemn yourself for feeling this. Simply see what it is. Desire at that stage is the cry of separation, and it drives outlining. I am this so that I may become that. But I am, in its purity, has no future tense. It is presence, not a project. The purest use of I am is not to create a better outline, but to surrender the need for outlining. How, then, is desire purified? Not by smothering it, not by pretending you have no longings, but by letting each longing lead you to its root and then to its cure. Sit with the felt urge to be different and notice what it presupposes. Then lay the presupposition at the altar and make this simple prayer. No embroidery, no adjectives. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. Say it once, say it twice, and then let even that fall silent. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. In that cadence, do you not feel the clutch in the chest begin to loosen? The outline fades. The compulsion to achieve a state gives way to the recognition that being already is. Never, never, never attempt to use I am as leverage to force tomorrow into your picture. Outlining is fear dressed as wisdom. It is the belief that, left to itself, law will not add. But the Master said, take no thought. Not a little thought, no thought. Seek the kingdom, the contact, the felt presence, and all these things are added. Added, not manufactured by your blueprint. The refrigerator fills, the next right step announces itself. Relationships recompose in quiet ways, but always as the overflow of contact, never as the prize for correct phrasing. So let your practice be honest and clean. When you taste the itch to define the future with, I am going to be, notice it without shame and return at once to the altar. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. Remain until the click is felt, until the sense of being satisfied without object steals over you. From there, if a movement arises, it will not be to complete an outline. It will be life being itself through you. Action without strain, speech without hypnosis. The present I am living, without a single line drawn upon tomorrow. Now then, let us be very simple and very clear, because this is where many become impatient and reach again for the old outlining. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. When contact is made, when the inner hush is felt, when presence is no longer an idea but the atmosphere of your very being, harmony does not need to be imported. It shows itself, not by magic, by law. God is a law as well as love, and where law is realized, order appears, as naturally as light fills a room when someone remembers to open the shutters. No hocus pocus, no spectacle. Quiet addition. You see, you sit in the early morning, and the mind, which last night was a tangle of plans, softens in the wordless prayer. There is that unforced click, that sense of being held by something not of your making. You rise and go about your day, and without strain, a thought arrives so clean you almost miss it. Write one letter. Call that person. Look in that file. You follow the thread, not because you are pushing, but because it is obvious. And the very knot that would not loosen yesterday unties itself. The reply comes. The next right opening appears. Was that a miracle? No. That is law operating where presence is acknowledged. Or take this, and many of you have known it. In the night, the body storms with fear. You do not battle it. You turn, as we have learned, from content to context and rest. Not to make something happen, but to honor what is. At first, the noise still shouts. Then a warmth begins, a soft clearing without words. Somewhere between breaths, the tremor ceases to be important. You sleep. In the morning, the grip has lost its authority. The breath moves freely, and the body follows that freedom in its time. What changed? Not a deity tossing down a cure. Consciousness yielded to the real, and the law of harmony, present all along, had unobstructed way. Or this very ordinary thing that becomes precious when you have ceased to outline it. The refrigerator is full. You did not chant for groceries. You were still, and after the stillness, there was a natural impulse to prepare a simple invoice or to clear a drawer, and in the clearing, you found an overlooked check, or you answered a message you had put off, and work, right work, came quietly. Supply did not arrive as a prize for correct phrasing. Supply was seen as the form of right activity revealed after contact. Please notice the root of every instance. It is not that presence hands you objects. Presence reveals itself as sufficiency, and that sufficiency translates, by law, into right ideas, right timing, right placement. The call that comes, the door that opens, the inner relaxation that allows the body to do what bodies are built to do. These are not exceptions to nature. They are nature purified of our interference. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. If your stage today includes taking a job, making a call, seeking counsel, do it after contact. Then action is not strain, it is obedience to law felt within. And never, never, never confuse the drama of getting with the demonstration of being. The Master said, "Take no thought. Seek the kingdom, seek contact, and all these things are added." Added, not wrestled for. Added, not hypnotized into being. After contact, life quietly rearranges its furniture, and you discover you have been at home all the while. Now then, let us make this daily doorway simple, usable, and free of strain. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. So take this as a way appropriate to the stage you are entering and let it lift you without effort. 15 minutes. That is all. Not to get anything, not to fix anything. 15 minutes to honor what is. First, acknowledge omnipresence. Quietly, without embroidery, recognize here and now the presence that is. If a sentence rises, let it be nothing more than a bow. You are here. The place where I stand is holy. Say it once, perhaps twice, and then stop. Do not continue to label God. Acknowledgement, not argument. This single inner nod turns you from the marketplace to the sanctuary. Second, release all outlining. Lay the blueprints on the altar. If a habitual request tries to push through, health, supply, success, see it, smile at it, and let it sink without a struggle. If you must use a thread of words to help the letting go, use it softly and briefly. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. Then drop even that. Never, never. Never try to smuggle in a plan under pious language. Outlining ends here. Third, be still. This is not concentration, and it is not holding the mind in a headlock. It is receptivity. Let the breath do what breath does. Let the body sit however it sits. If thoughts move, do not chase them, do not push them. Listen, not for sentences, but for a hush beneath the sentences. You are not making silence. You are allowing the always present quiet to be noticed. Fourth, rest as awareness. Gently turn from what is heard, seen, or felt to the fact that it is known. What is it that knows this breath, this chair, this stray thought? Rest as that. No effort, no shaping. If labels rise, let them go by. Like birds crossing a sky you do not need to manage. You cannot improve awareness by polishing appearances. Be the sky, not the weather. Fifth, let gratitude and love rise without an object. Not gratitude for a thing, not love for an outcome. Gratitude that being is. Love for the sheer isness of presence. If warmth comes, welcome it. If nothing comes, welcome that. Do not reach. Do not measure. Simply allow an unreasoned yes to occupy the heart. This is your 15 minutes. If words appear, do not fight them. Let them pass. If images appear, let them pass. Your practice is not phrasing, it is listening for impartation, the quiet click of contact. And how shall you know? Not by fireworks, by field tests. Through the day you will notice less compulsion to control, a gentler turn in your reactions where sharpness once leapt, a spontaneous right idea arriving cleanly at the moment of need, a sense, sometimes faint, sometimes full, of being carried rather than pushing. These are signs of contact, not badges of virtue. Do not collect them. Do not boast of them. Simply notice and be grateful without an object. Do this in the morning, and if agitation rises, do it again for 5 or 10 minutes, not to change conditions, but to honor presence. Go to God for God. Sit, acknowledge, release, be still, rest as awareness. Let love rise, and listen. The most authentic I am practice is silent receptivity, resting as awareness until contact is felt. And after contact, harmony, without drama, is added. Now then, let us come down out of the clouds and walk the street with this. You see, when I am has shifted from phrase to presence, life does not become an abstraction. It becomes wonderfully simple. Action without strain. Speech without hypnosis. You still answer emails. You still speak to your children. You still sit in meetings. But the engine that used to drive you, fear, hurry, impressing, has gone quiet. You move from an inner contact, and from that contact, what to do next is plain, and the doing is clean. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. Some days you will remember the sanctuary before you speak. Some days the tongue will run ahead, and you will hear yourself trying to bend the world with words. Do not call that wrong. Just notice it and return. A quiet pause, even mid-sentence, even mid-breath, and the tone changes. Presence is acknowledged, and suddenly your I am statements become honest reports, not levers. I am not available for that, said from presence, carries no edge. I am listening, said from presence, is not a technique to get a sale. It is the fact of attention. I am at peace, when said at all, is not a spell to chase away fear. It is a witness spoken after peace has announced itself within. Here is how it looks in the day. A bill arrives with a red notice. Formerly the chest would clench and the mind would sprint into outlining. Now you feel the first wave, and before you act, you turn, even for 10 seconds, into the silence we have practiced. Not to make money appear, never, but to honor presence. In that honoring, A simple step appears. Call this office. Rearrange that appointment. Send one concise note. You take the step without drama, and the tangle loosens by law. Or someone speaks to you sharply. Formerly, you would spike back or collapse. Now there is space. Compassion without superiority. They are where they are. And firmness without fear. This is not acceptable. Issue in the same sentence. No theater, no rehearsal. You are not using words to hypnotize them or yourself. You are reporting what presence knows to do. Decisions, too, become different. You do not canvass 1,000 opinions to stifle your anxiety. You touch contact, and from that hush, a direction forms. It may be bold, it may be modest, but it does not grind you to carry it out. Yes means yes, no means no, and you do not explain yourself into exhaustion. You let conditions be what they are. You do not argue with rain or chase away headlines, while quietly refusing to grant them power over the fact. This refusal is not defiance, it is recognition. Presence is the context. Weather is weather. And if tomorrow you find yourself back in the old stage, rushing, repeating phrases to prop up a mood, smile. Never, never, never make a career out of self-accusation. Return, return, and return again to the inner contact, for the kingdom is within you, and the door opens from your side. In time, sometimes sooner than you think, you will notice the fruit. Fewer words doing more work, fewer moves accomplishing what many could not. A sweetness entering duties that once felt heavy. This is the evidence that I am has taken its rightful place, not on your lips as a device, but as the living presence from which you see, speak, and act. From there, life arranges itself, and you go about your day unhurried, undefended, quietly sure. Now then, let us place a seal upon this, not with ornament, but with the quiet that honors what we have seen. God is omnipresent, never doubt that, but omnipresence does not of itself become availability to us until contact is made. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. Contact is not a performance, it is a yielding. It is the still consent to let love without an object and gratitude without a reason rise of themselves. It is the abandonment of desire to manipulate outcomes. Be very sure of this. The instant you reach to shape the fruit, you have left the tree. Return. Be still. Let presence reveal itself on its own terms. We must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness. So if today your inner room is dry, if the mind clatters, if no warmth comes, do not call that wrong. Sit anyway, love anyway, be grateful anyway, without an object. Never, never, never chase experiences. Chasing is just another name for outlining. Your task is not to produce a feeling. Your task is to keep the door unlatched. Knock, not at heaven above, but at the door of your own consciousness. For the kingdom is within you, and the opening is felt as a quiet click, sometimes scarcely more than the easing of a breath. Let this be your rhythm. Acknowledge, release, be still. Let love rise without an object, and listen. If words come at all, let them be as simple as this. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. Say it once, say it twice, and then let even that sink into silence. Presence is not a phrase, not a method, not a performance. Presence, presence, presence. When you honor it thus, without bargaining, law begins to move of itself, and harmony is added. Never as spectacle, always as order. Do not be discouraged if the first knock seems met with quiet. Keep knocking, not urgently, not anxiously, faithfully. Faithfulness itself is the prayer. Over and over and over again, turn from the content to the context, from the weather to the sky, from the sentence, "I am," to the awareness that hears it. In its own time, in its own sweetness, the sense of separation thins, the grip of fear loosens, and there is the unmistakable recognition, not fireworks, not drama, but a gentle surety. I am is here as the very life of me. And then, you see, I am ceases to be something said and becomes the presence you live. You move without strain. You speak without hypnosis. You let conditions be what they are, while quietly refusing them power over the fact. If tomorrow you forget, smile and return. Stages are stages. Keep knocking at the door of your own consciousness until it clicks. Keep honoring God by wanting nothing from God but God, and you will discover, quietly, lawfully, that what needed to be added is added. Stay with silent recognition until I am is no longer spoken, but known, and lived, and trusted as all. Presence, presence, presence.